Not long after I started full menopause, my husband was diagnosed with a pituitary tumor. That was the beginning of my hellish years, the 5 years that I felt like I was in hell. I questioned everything. I wanted to leave him. Here I was going through menopause. My hormones were depleting. That was additional emotional stress. It was a very, very difficult time. Hello and welcome to the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast. I am your host, Lisa R. Triggs, best-selling author of The Menopause Mindshift, How I Unleashed My Inner Queen, and you can too, and so on and so forth. Menopause Queen, all that good stuff. So if you haven't noticed by now, this is a very relaxed podcast. So far, I've been just doing it from my office here. I have my vision board behind me, which is still a work in progress. And I even have my shameless plug of my book behind me on my credenza. And so I am sporting today a new tiara. This one is gold. My other two that I have are silver, but this one is gold to match my little crown necklace I've got here. So today I've been debating today's topic, and I think that I'm just going to go for it and we'll see how it goes. This is not rehearsed. This is off the cuff. This is just me having a conversation with you about what I experienced during menopause. And I hope that it helps you, or if you can relate, please drop a comment. If you can relate to any of this, please do let me know. Okay. So we're going to go off the rails, and touch on menopause and relationships, and along with that, sex. Okay, so for me, what happened was I became under a tremendous amount of stress. If you've seen or heard my previous podcasts, I talk about it slightly. So today I will dive in a little bit more. Not long after I started full menopause, my husband was diagnosed with a pituitary tumor. The pituitary in men creates testosterone. It helps regulate the hormones. In women, we use it for feeding babies. It helps us produce milk. It has a bunch of other uses as well, but we're going to focus on the hormones because that's what affected my life in particular the most. What happened was he noticed some changes and went to the doctor, had some blood work done, and they determined that he had this pituitary tumor. They did do a scan, and to be honest, nothing really showed up in the scan. So they either determined it was just very, very minute, but it was enough to throw things off. And boy, did it. That was the beginning of my hellish years, the 5 years that I felt like I was in hell. I questioned everything. I wanted to leave him every other day. So it was a very, very difficult time. It was everything. Here I was going through menopause. My hormones were depleting. So I was stressed to the max. It was a very difficult time. We had many, many conversations, and we didn't want to end the marriage because we still did truly love each other. We loved spending time together. We had built a family, and it was very important to us. But this was a complication. Personally, in our relationship, that was not good. It became a roller coaster. And that's when I went more in myself. I withdrew. I became desolate and distant. I started crying. I gained 40 pounds. And that's also around the time when I went to my doctor, when I started crying, and I had cried for like 2 months. I went to my doctor and said, okay, I need something. I'll try hormone replacement therapy. I need to do something. Herbs I'm taking are not doing it anymore. I'm under far too much stress. So when I went to the doctor and asked about the hormone replacement therapy, the first thing she said to me was, I don't like to put people on it because the longer you are on it, the harder it is to come off. And this was going back 10 years now. But that stuck in my mind. That was something that has always stuck in my mind. The longer you are on it, the harder it is to come off. And she told me of a patient who was 80 years old and was still taking it. And they tried to take her off and she fell apart. So they had to put her back on. So again, this many years ago, there was big talk of the cancer risk and all that kind of stuff. So it was really use at your own risk. So I was desperate at that time to have some relief. I was experiencing hot flashes like you wouldn't believe because of all the stress. Marijuana had become legal in Canada. So I was trying weed gummies or even the tincture, the liquid. Never smoke. I don't like the smell of that smoke or any other smoke. So smoking is not for me, but became a regular user of gummies and tincture to help me sleep, to help reduce my stress. But then I discovered with that I was kind of groggy and still sleepy the next day. Tried different doses of the THC along with the CBD, and then tried just CBD as well. So I play with it, and I just found after a few months, I was finding really, really groggy the next day, and I greened out, what they call it, once. I accidentally took too much. My son's friend had brought a chocolate bar over, and I forgot how much THC was in each square, and I think I ate 2. I had way too much. So what happened was I greened out. That night, I was violently ill. I not only threw up, I heaved very dramatically, very intensely, multiple times. I got sick like 7, 8 times. And my husband had said when it finally stopped, I finally fell asleep and he said my breathing was so shallow that he was actually quite concerned. So after that happened, I decided that I better lay off a little. I was on the hormone replacement therapy, and particularly I wanted relief from the hot flashes and the weight gain. I was trying to get all that under control at the same time too. So I took the hormone replacement therapy for 2 years. And during that 2 years, I did see some improvement in the hot flashes. So I was able to sleep a little bit more. I did have a little bit more energy. During all this time, I was still working as well. Fortunately, I worked from home at that time too, as I do now. So I empathize with the working women who are working out of your house and trying to deal with your menopause symptoms. I've been very fortunate to be able to work from home, but having to go out of the house is another thing altogether. So saw an improvement with the hot flashes. Weight, I managed to lose a little bit. I did start exercising a little differently and so forth. So I did start to lose a little bit of weight. But after 2 years, that thing that the doctor had said to me was still in the back of my mind. The longer you're on it, the harder it is to come off. So I made the decision that I was going to come off because it's just not me to be on something long-term. Long-term medication is just something I choose not to do because I believe anyway, no matter what it is, and every medication has some sort of side effect. As was happening with my husband and everything that was going on there. It was still a very stressful time, but I did decide to go off the hormone replacement therapy and go back to some herbs. I believe I did some acupuncture. During that time, I had a bout of vertigo that lasted for about 18 months. And then I discovered that dizziness was a symptom. So that made a lot of sense because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get this vertigo to go away. And again, I had been on medication for it. And then I had seen an osteopath. I saw one for acupuncture, chiropractic, naturopaths. So I was trying it all and wasn't quite able to find that balance still. So I ended up gaining a little bit more of the weight back because again, I was back still under that stress. So after about 5 years had passed, things in my personal relationship were still very, very stressful. I get a little emotional because it was not fun at all. When you're going through something like this, is that the hormone fluctuations are always there. So you can imagine what that was like. So basically, both my husband and I were in menopause, so to speak. For a man, it's called andropause. That's male menopause at the same time. So that was additional emotional stress. And it's just an ongoing process. It's something that we really had to decide to work on and keep together because there are days it's very difficult. And I have to consider my mental health now first. That was a big thing that I learned during the process, during the transformation that I went through, the realization that I needed to take control over my life. And I did it through all these means, call it manifestation, the using meditation, calming my body, all that kind of stuff. So these are the means that I dove into as much as I could to try and save myself, basically. I realized that it was a choice. I had to make a choice every single day, how I wanted to be, how I wanted to feel, how I wanted to conduct my life. I was living in negativity. I was so dragged down by what was going on in my personal life that I was just self-absorbed in negativity. So during my transformational journey, really, it was a light bulb. And, he'll say to this day, it was that I came out of this office and said, I have been thinking about things in a wrong way. I have been thinking about everything negatively. I have to find things that make me feel good, that make me happy, that I love about him. I had to focus on those. I had to focus on our family, the things that we enjoyed doing together, the things that I loved. In part in that, I was putting myself first. By doing all these other things, by my journaling, meditation, listening to music, I was putting myself first and healing. And that's what I needed to do. And that's the transformation. That's when the transformation happened. When I made that conscious decision to stop living in the negative and start looking for the beauty in my life, the love in my life. And in turn, as I've talked before about how all these things are connected, that boils down to self-love. I had never thought about self-love, about loving myself and what that meant and what that looked like. If I don't love myself, how am I going to love anyone else, especially my spouse? That's a big change. That's a big realization. And when you make that shift in mindset and rewrite or write, if you're just beginning your menopause journey, write your own menopause story, define your own menopause journey. In my case, it was a rewrite. It was a reset. It was a shift. I shifted my whole thought process about how I felt about myself inside. It was a total internal journey that taught me how to love myself, how to love him, and focus on the things that I loved about him and other people for that matter. The world, be grateful for my life. There are many things that are very wonderful about my life, but I could not recognize any of it. I was walking through the world in a cloud of numbness, and many people might relate to this. I was numb. Now, whether that was just the symptoms or the extra stress that was on, I believe so. I believe that extra stress made everything worse. But once I made that realization, I made this conscious decision and did all these things to help calm it down, calm my body down on the inside, get my mindset rolling correctly on the outside, it was a big difference. And what all that has to do with sex is that when I was able to make that transformation, I started to feel that again. I started to actually, my estrogen started to go up. I was starting to feel like a little spicy again. And that wasn't the case before. I believe that also coincidentally, my husband had gone off of the medication that was driving me crazy, literally. And so that was a big help. But it was all within me though, right? I had to make that decision. Because of course I got to a point where I was resentful, and there was a time where I did not like him very much at all. I resented him. And so I started nitpicking at him in my mind as well, like this little thing and that little thing. And I had to stop all that. I had to shut that all down and say, you know what? He's so funny. He makes me laugh all the time. He's very affectionate, all that good stuff. That's where things started to improve even in the bedroom for me, because of course, during that other time, it was a downward spiral, and I was like, just get away from me. You get what you get when you get it, kind of thing. And so my whole point in telling you this story as well about what it was like for me is because it goes back to that conscious choice. It goes back to that loving myself. I had to love myself first before I loved him in any particular way. And once I did that, I felt better about myself. I felt better about my relationship. I felt better about my intimate relationship and intimacy in general. So that's the connection between everything, is that once I improved inside, outside improved, including my connection, my physical relationships. So don't think that your mindset doesn't affect every area of your life, because it does, as well as how you feel about yourself. I did not feel sexy during that time. I had gained weight and I did not feel sexy whatsoever. As I started to feel better about myself, I did start to feel sexier again. And I also started to lose some of the weight. So I've lost, when I say a little over 20 pounds, almost half of what I had gained so far. And I have said before, and I'll say it again, I do not diet. I stopped dieting. Watch what I eat. I move my body, and I move my body in the right way. And these are all things that help me feel better about myself and the world around me. That's the connection to everything. And that includes sex. So let's tie that all together now with the conscious choice, how you feel about yourself is going to determine how you feel about your relationship, how you behave in your relationship. It's a conscious decision. I was in a Facebook group where women had said that they left their man. He was bugging her, so she got rid of him. It was the best thing she ever did. I considered that many, many, many times. But you have to decide for yourself what's best. And in some cases, maybe that is what's best. But for me, focusing on the good, I truly enjoy being with this man. We have a lovely life. We have a lovely family that we have built. So I don't want to throw that away. So we work at it. And part of that working at it is working on myself. Working on myself makes me feel better, makes me think, speak, act with love, which makes the whole world better. Relationships, sex, menopause symptoms. I'm going to end it there. Thank you very much for coming along this journey with me and listening to my story today. And if you can relate, please drop me a comment. If anybody wants to chat about their experience, if they might be going through something similar, I would love to chat about it. Thank you so much. See you next time.